Hi everyone. Today we are going to introduce the new integration between Sysdig and ServiceNow on Container Vulnerability Response, or CVR. My name is Manuel Boira. I'm Solutions Architect at Sysdig. Akhila from ServiceNow is here. Hey Akhila.
Hi, Manuel. Hi, everyone. This is Akhila Managoli. I'm a solution architect from ServiceNow.
And now we will make sure that you understand how the Sysdig and ServiceNow platforms fits together to make it easier and faster, orchestrate security responses, and leverage runtime insights. I'd like to start talking about the DevOps landscape in which we play very briefly, okay? Companies want to deploy containers in public cloud environments while they are looking to become more agile by adopting DevOps processes like continuous integration, continuous deployment, and approaches as code. But all we know that whenever function is improved, it comes with some security challenges. Now, get this. Did you know that 87% of container images have high-risk vulnerabilities? And that is not all. NIST identifies around 50 new vulnerabilities every day. Another specific security challenge around containers is that 44% of them live less than 5 minutes in production, so they are ephemeral. This was just to illustrate how container security is different from classical approaches, okay, security approaches. Now that we understand the container's life cycle, which is different, and the amount of critical vulnerabilities, it's not surprising to hear that organizations report an average time to resolution per vulnerability of around 250 days. The reason of this huge delay is that security teams have to struggle with thousands of vulnerabilities, and the only way to reduce this risk fatigue is by having the right context to make the right decisions on what to prioritize and resolve first. Traditional vulnerability scanners already provide some context, but it is usually static and come from feeds. This context is, for example, exploitability, availability of the fix, etc. We will show you now how Sysdig and ServiceNow help to reduce this effort to address risks. Here it comes runtime insights provided by Sysdig. Sysdig has deep visibility at runtime. Sysdig instrumentation collects valuable in-use information to flag risk exposure. The impact of this context on developer performance and teams synergy is tremendous. Sysdig runtime insights for containers can reduce up to 95% of noise. In the example, it is filtering from 1,000 vulnerabilities to just 50. That doesn't mean your team should ignore them, but instead you can prioritize what really matters. How this prioritization is possible? Let's dig a little bit deeper. Only a subset of packages compiled at build time are loaded and executed at runtime, as you can see in the diagram. A Sysdig machine learning mechanism analyzes continuously these workloads, the behavior, and identifies what packages are effectively loaded and thus exposed to the world. We will show you more in a couple of minutes. But first, let's Akhila talk us about ServiceNow. Akhila?
Thank you, Manuel. I'll quickly walk you through ServiceNow vulnerability response module as well as the container vulnerability response module. As Manuel walked us through, once you scan the vulnerabilities across your applications, there's a need to have a unified view of all the vulnerabilities across the enterprise. And ServiceNow Vulnerability Response application helps you get a single pane of glass view of the vulnerabilities across the enterprise. The ServiceNow Vulnerability Response application helps you to import to different scanners like Sysdig. Once you import, you bring in the vulnerabilities along with the assets of the container that's exposed on into ServiceNow platform. And you can use the automated prioritization rules to auto-assign the vulnerable items to different teams automatically and also calculate the risk scores. This really helps you to look at the risk posture of your environment. Using that information, you can triage and remediate vulnerabilities quickly saving tons of time for the remediation teams. Once remediated, you can use the downstream workflows like change management to record the production changes and close the loop of the vulnerability that's from vulnerability lifecycle. So as Manuel was talking about, the container vulnerabilities can be found in the pre-deployment phase, which is the shift left of CI/CD pipeline, or the post-deployment phase. But there are additional benefits of scanning vulnerabilities on containers on the post-deployment phase. So the runtime vulnerability scan, it provides the visibility into the risk for the deployed applications. Not only that, the scan allows for using the business service context for risk scoring. So as I said, there's a container vulnerability response module specific to bringing in the container vulnerabilities exposed on different containers. There are additional benefits using this module. And what are the problems solved with this container vulnerability response module? One thing is ability to point the source Docker image from the vulnerability instead of just using the running container. As we know, containers are ephemeral in nature. So the container vulnerability response module creates VIs pointing to an image repository or a specific Docker image record in configuration management database, but not on running container instances. And not only that, it provides you the VI granularity. One of the classic problems the remediation teams have is, I need to create granular vulnerable items for the containers. So the application gives you an ability to configure granularity of creating VIs to track at image version level or the Kubernetes cluster level or the namespace or the image tag. Using these additional information, you can go as granular as you want. Combining all these together, not only the problem solved what we spoke earlier, addition to that, the ServiceNow container vulnerability response, it helps you automatically track any vulnerabilities fixed in the older version and closes them automatically. Sometimes this information may not be available in the scanners, but the application helps you to complete the cycle here. And also it helps you to track the VIs in the base image if that's available from the scanner import from the application image to allow for independent remediation effort for the DevOps team versus application and other teams that are involved. And not only that, the remediation owners can raise exception request or false positive request, which can be reviewed through multi-level approval process. The plugin built by Sysdig for ServiceNow Container Vulnerability Response pulls runtime vulnerabilities from Sysdig APIs, populating ServiceNow container vulnerable items, as well as other related tables like packages, CVs, runtime insights, etc. And the configuration management database of ServiceNow, it holds the assets also are fed into that as images and repositories and registries.
That was great. Thank you. Let me tell you how Sysdig plugin for CVR is delivered. As any other ServiceNow application, you can find it on a ServiceNow store. There you can install your application and also download detailed documentation. All that you need is your Sysdig SaaS account connected to your infrastructure so that it can populate with vulnerability results from runtime, from Kubernetes clusters, and configure your regional endpoint, credentials, and the synchronization period. And that's it. CVR plugin will start pulling vulnerabilities and packages from Sysdig into ServiceNow CVIs. Well, I think it's demo time. Let me show you first the Sysdig side of things. So this is what the Sysdig runtime vulnerability results screen looks like. We have a list of images with their information, registries, version, and vulnerabilities associated, detected by Sysdig, as well as other contexts useful, like spreadability and the in-use flags that are basically these runtime insights that we told before. Looking into details of one of these images, you can see here a list of packages here in use, and we can go through the full list of vulnerabilities with all the information associated, like CVA, exploitability, package version, etc. It's interesting to see how this specific image has 306 vulnerabilities, but when we use the risk spotlight data with the in-use flag, we will reduce them to 95 vulnerabilities. That combined with, for example, the explorability flag will result in just 6 vulnerabilities, which is awesome. Akhila, do you want to talk about what it looks like in ServiceNow?
Yes, Manuel. So once we import the container vulnerabilities into CVR module, you see a CVITs get created. And I'll talk about how each CVIT record looks like. It's a unique record in the CVR module, and you see the number there. And as you see, the source is highlighted as Sysdig. Sometimes you might be integrating with multiple tools, but this helps you to identify quickly which source the record is created for. And you see the vulnerability information there, the summary of the vulnerability, which image repository it's belonging to, and the risk score, which already makes use of the in-use field and additional context, and then that's fed into the risk score already using the risk score calculators, which Manuel will walk you through in a minute. The risk rating, the severity of the record, and what state the vulnerable item currently is in. Is it in open state or deferred state or a closed state, etc. And you see the Docker image information, as well as the integration details and the assignment rules, which is used to assign this to a remediation team. When we click open this record, these are the additional context that you can see. As a remediation team, you get to know what is my SLA on this, which is the remediation target rule, and which rule is being used to calculate this. Is this a high risk score or the low risk score, and so on and so forth. And you can also see the vulnerability information, the Docker image, the image repository, and the Discover container image will have the additional context of the cloud account ID and where it's running, cloud account details, additional context to this record. And when you scroll down, you can also see the image cluster and the image namespace being populated based on the scan, based on the discovery. Also, I want to highlight here the in-use field. So sometimes the Sysdig import provides all the packages with vulnerabilities, whereas the ServiceNow platform consolidates all the packages with vulnerabilities belonging to the same image. In this example, there are 2 packages having the same vulnerability for the same image. So we have consolidated that. And as you can see, one of them is in use false, and the other one is true.
That's good. Let me show you also one of my favorite ServiceNow automations or set of automations that are, we have many options like assignment rules to make decisions on what team or what people to assign vulnerabilities depending on multiple context data, like, for example, namespace or cluster name, just to say a couple of them. Vulnerability calculators that I will show more in detail right now in a minute. Remediation target rules to set deadlines and trigger alerts if we are not meeting the expected time to resolution. Exceptions, we can automate these exceptions based on multiple factors. Approval rules, we can design our workflows. And, for example, auto-close vulnerable items, depending on, for example, how long it was resolved. Let's see vulnerability calculator, okay? We provide a vulnerability calculator rule out of the box, just as an example for our customers on how they can combine multiple fields coming from Sysdig, or as well as other objects like CVI data to decide or to rate the risk based on their own calculations. In this example, we are using fields like in use, which means this risk spotlight, vulnerability exploit, and also the severity. With the combination of them, we decide how much risk do we want to rate automatically every CVI. And I think that's enough to make us an idea, Akhila.
Yes, I agree with you, Manuel. So with this information, now we encourage you to go to ServiceNow store and get the app. If you search for Sysdig, you will find the application integration. So you can install it in your sub-production instance and get a feel for the integration.
Cool. I enjoyed it. Hope it was helpful. Thank you so much and see you soon. Bye-bye.